from there. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for this very special TTR Presents, a message of hope and turning adversity into opportunity. We have two of my favorite people on here today to share their stories. I will say we have Kristy Rose Follmar. I just happened to see her face here first, and Sherri, unfortunately, is having some technical issues, but I promise you, if you go check her out, her picture, she's beautiful. So just the voice you hear is as lovely as she is. But TTR, or To the Rescue Networking, is you can find us at ttrnetworking.com. I just shared that with the group that's on here. And we have a number of networking or groups that meet weekly. We're individual, we're industry exclusive networking groups, but we are there to help build each other's businesses. It's more than that, though. It is building each other's businesses, but it's also taking time to get to know each other and sharing much more than what we do in our day jobs, and learning about each other and connecting. Making warm connections is really what I try to do all the times. We talk about it. My personal mission, I've been working on this, but it's to introduce people through warm connections, and then also introduce them to themselves, their unique selves. Because I'm pretty unique and I figured that out the hard way. But anyway, I'll share that another time. But today we are going to talk and learn and listen to two of my favorite people. Sherri Hammersmith, who is the founder of One Step at a Time. It's a 5K walk run. And I'm hoping, Sherri, can you put in, and Kristy, I'm going to ask you to do that too, but can you ladies put in your contact information in the chat? I'm also having our attendees. Did you already do that? Okay, sorry. Kristy did. Sherri, if you're able to do it. If you can't, I will share. You can go to onestep5krunwalk.org and learn more about the One Step at a Time. And you can also then learn more about Kristy and her contact information on there. But anyway, I feel like I'm all tongue-tied. I'm so excited. I've been thinking about this for a couple months, and we put this together, and I just think it's, okay, she's got her email, good. Okay, so Sherri, last year we started, last year we did the same thing, almost exactly the same day, almost, because it keeps popping up in my memory. So Sherri did it last year, and it was just a message of hope. It was a message of hope. I met Kristy this year, and she's a member of our networking organization, and I had to connect these two ladies. Fortunately, I connected them and they agreed to do this together. So I want to introduce, I'm first going to let Sherri tell us a little bit about hers, but not little bit, tell us all her story. And then we're going to turn it over to Kristy to tell her story. And we'll just then Q&A and they can answer, because I know they'll know the right things to share. So Sherri, does that make sense? Do you mind taking the lead here? Go ahead.
Oh, no. And if I talk too long, just say, Sherri, we're done. No.
I don't know if I'll do that.
Don't hesitate. Thank you, Jennifer, for everything you do and for helping me get the word out, especially about this, and the passion that I have about this, and I believe that your family also does. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate you too, Phil.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, I'm just going to jump right into it. I did not plan to end it this way. I love you, Mom and Dad. Scott James Hammersmith. In 2006, my family endured the most painful event of our lives, which was death. Death of a son, a brother, a friend, a grandson, a 16-year-old boy on April 6, 2006. my son Scott completed suicide on April 6, 2006. He was an honor roll student, active in baseball, basketball, and just an all-around great kid. A kid that any parent would have loved to have had. But soon to find out that he had had a secret. It taunted him daily. Told him he didn't try hard enough. Told him he was broken, unfixable. Told him lies. And told him there was no hope. But I can assure you that on the morning of April 6, 2006, I never would have thought I would be talking in front of a group of people speaking about depression and suicide. Because at that point in my life, those were just things I had heard about. 12 hours later on that day, 16 years ago, my whole life shifted. My life, days, weeks, and even months following Scott's death was a complete blur. But I came to a point in which I knew I needed to do something. I knew that his death could have been prevented if I had only known, and if he also knew, the lies he was being told. I knew I needed to take this tragic event that my family suffered and use it to prevent another family's loss. Depression likes to isolate us, which, like many of us, have felt, especially the last couple of years. But the really great thing about the depression, it is treatable. It's treatable, just like diabetes or any other disease. Depression is real. It lurks behind corners and it attacks those of us who seem to have it all. I tell people the best way to describe it that I've come to is depression is living in a body that fights to survive with a mind that tries to die. The days following Scott's death were a blur. I could see myself functioning, but I felt numb. I had nothing left in me to give. I felt like my life had stopped. There was no reason to go on. There was no hope. Obviously, I still cry. Our family began therapy the same week Scott had passed away. It was through therapy that I realized there was hope. Hope that life will and does go on, even though it looks different. We learned that Scott's choice didn't have to dictate our lives and that we could find happiness again. Today marks 16 and a half years of hope, but it wasn't always and still isn't easy. And I didn't do it alone, of course. And that's where One Step at a Time 5K Walk Run was launched. It was launched in 2011. I wanted to simply raise awareness that this disease can affect anyone at any time. As a family, suicide, much less anything related to mental health, was never a topic of discussion in our household. It was something that other people dealt with. We had the misconception that Scott didn't have anything to be sad about, but we had learned that depression is so much more than sadness. It's a conflict with the brain. Through One Step at a Time, we have been able to spread exactly that message, that depression is a disease, it is treatable, and that suicide can be prevented. We celebrated 11 years of stepping for those who hurt, who feel unheard, and for those who survive. One Step at a Time has grown so big over the years. At one point, we had 400 participants, which was just huge. To me, that was a statement that people come together to feel not alone, to know that they do matter. Our Memory Mile, we also gives walkers and runners a chance to see the face of loved ones who have been lost to this ugly disease. And proceeds from this annual race have gone to mental health trainings, sponsorships of youth activities. We have also partnered with the United Way of Defiance County to bring the suicide prevention and depression awareness programming to our local schools. Our hope through One Step at a Time is that we encourage participants to step up and speak out about mental health and the importance of breaking that stigma. We all have a job to do, and that's to lift those up who are struggling and to love on those who are hurting. I was asked here by Jennifer to speak about this today, to be vocal about the struggle my family has had with losing Scott. It's still not easy. I still cry. I still mourn his death every single day. I still wish things were different. And we together as individuals and communities must strive to provide continued hope for current and future generations, because as we know, hope is a desire of obtaining good. And as a community, it's incumbent on each of us to provide as much hope as we possibly can. Thank you for letting me share my story, a little bit of it, a little piece of it. I have overcome the stigma of losing a son to suicide. I have also overcome being avoided as if suicide is contagious. I have overcome rumors. My family has stood together through this all. Because of all of that, more people have connected and have seen that we are not only survivors, but we are all warriors in some way or form. Thank you, Jennifer, and to the rescue of networking.
You're welcome. It's just kind of funny, Sherri, not funny, but it's funny that our next speaker is kind of a warrior. I mean, literally, she took it to the mat and did all kinds of stuff with it. But Sherri, thank you. I can't even begin to, every time you share your story, it just I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And thank you. So you're not going anywhere. You're going to stick around. And Kristy joined our network this year, and I don't know why, but Kristy, we ended up talking one day, and you were sharing all this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this doesn't just happen by accident. There's something. So Kristy Rose. Well, actually, wait a minute. Kristy, the Fighting Rose Follmar. Can I say you're a 3-time world champion Indiana boxing? You're an Indiana boxer. I mean, you're not even that old. You don't have to tell us how old you are. But anyway, 3-time world, and you were inducted into the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame this past summer, right? So thank you for being here. Sherri, thank you. I'm going to ask Kristy to share her story, and then I just thought it would be good to open up some questions and see what questions people have. So Kristy, take it away. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. And thanks, as Sherri said, Jenny, thank you for letting us tell our stories. I think many people don't want to ask questions, but Sherri and I talked about this before. We actually prefer that people ask questions. It's a stigma that we want to help people understand. So my perspective as a survivor of suicide comes from a completely different angle than Sherri's. When I was growing up, I had a family of 4, mom, dad, my brother, and I. It's a pretty normal family, big Irish Catholic family. And I was very much a tomboy and daddy's little girl. And my dad grew up with 5 brothers, and they were like the scrappers of the neighborhood. So at a very, very young age, wrestling and roughhousing and boxing and fighting was just kind of like part of my family. My dad, we used to love wrestling with him. He taught us how to throw punches. We went to WrestleMania in Chicago. It was just like roughhousing, and that whole culture was something that was near and dear to my heart, because growing up with a bunch of men around me, it's just what we did. When I was going almost 14 years old, my dad made what I like to call today just a really stupid decision. He did not have a history of depression. In fact, he was the life of the party. He was the leader of his brotherly gang. He was, the guy that you wanted at your wedding reception, because he'd be in his underwear dancing on the tables at the end of the party. Just, he was a comedian, very good athlete, had his stuff together. There was no history of depression, but come to find out, he was having an affair with my mother. I'm sorry, he was having an affair, and my mother found out about it, and they had a big fight the night that she found out about it. And the next morning, he didn't make it to work. He drove off the road and used his 9mm and took his own life on a Monday morning.
I'm sorry.
So it was more of a split decision than a history. Nobody saw this coming. And as a 14-year-old girl, I manifested my depression and anxiety over the situation in very aggressive ways. I became very isolated from my family. I had violent tendencies. I was becoming violent with my little brother, who was 5 years younger than me, punching holes in the wall. Didn't want the affection from my friends, just was very angry. And as a as a teenage girl, it's an awkward age anyway. Throw that into the mix. I was lost. My mother had the intuition to buy me a heavy bag and some boxing gloves. And she hung up the heavy bag in the garage, and she said, when you get upset about your father, instead of punching holes in my door and pushing your brother around, go out there and do what your dad taught you and hit the heavy bag. And that's what I started to do. I went out in that garage, and I knew how to throw punches, and I started to use that heavy bag as therapy. And it really helped me. I fell in love with hitting that heavy bag. And when I had emotions of any kind, I would go out and I would use that heavy bag. At the time, there was no programs for kids for boxing or anything like that. So I immersed myself into athletics. So I was a 4-sport athlete all through high school, kind of put the heavy bag away, but always used track, cross country, softball, basketball as my outlet. Sports became who I was and really got me through high school. And I always went back to running, doing athletics in any kind of traumatic event. And, throughout high school, if I was just having a bad day, going out for a run was my therapy, and is to this day. Fast forward to college, I was a collegiate cross country runner at Ball State University. The freshman year, I blew my knee out, and so my athletic competitive days were done. And I found myself in a really depressed state once again, because sports were my life. And I came across an article about another student at Ball State, a female student who had just won $10,000 scholarship for winning the Indiana Boxing Golden Gloves championship. And I was like, who is this girl? And did some research, and I found out at Ball State in Muncie, Indiana, there was the Athletic Pal Club. The Muncie Athletic Pal Club was police athletic club, was right down the street from where I was living. It was a boxing gym that was built for inner city kids. And there was a whole bunch of Ball State kids also training. And those two things usually were never combined. So Ball State was like a whole, culture. And then the Muncie inner city kids was a whole culture, and never did those two things cross paths. But here was this inner city boxing club that was training Muncie kids and Ball State kids to become amateur boxers. And so I knew this was my time to start to learn how to box for real. And I walked into that gym, and I met my coach, Mark Lemrick, who coincidentally today's his birthday. Mark took me under his wing. It was like everything that my dad taught me came flooding back into my soul. And I started to learn how to box. And Mark became kind of a father figure for me in those college years that I really needed. There was kind of a void in my life. We to this day have a tremendous friendship. We went on to win the Indiana Golden Gloves 2 years in a row, got some scholarship money. And then I ended up turning professional at 20 years old, became a pro boxer, won a couple of world championships. And it was just an unexpected boxing career that, I attribute to, the topic of this conversation, which is turning adversity into an opportunity. Had I not had that experience in my garage, I wouldn't have stepped into that gym that day. got pregnant with my daughter in 2006, and kind of put boxing away, retired from boxing. And I was approached one day, I got a phone call from the Marion County prosecutor at the time, who was Scott Newman. I don't know if you guys remember him. Marion County prosecutor who was 30, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at the age of 38. Coincidentally, his doctor had told him, you know, you just need to take your medications and kind of calm down, just stay comfortable, don't hurt yourself. But Scott had this bright idea that maybe if this disease, which pretty much strips you of your movement, maybe if I exercise, it would have a reverse effect. And his doctor told him, no way, no one's doing that. You just don't do it. And thank God he didn't listen to him. His best friend was a fellow lawyer who was also a Golden Gloves champion back in the Army days. And his friend said, if you want to exercise, let me teach you what I know, which is boxing, because I think it's going to cover everything that you're dealing with. So we're going to work on speed and hand-eye coordination and balance, and you're going to work on anaerobic and aerobic capacity. And I'm going to take you out running. We're going to do all these things that that you seem to be losing. So his friend took Scott Newman under his wing and taught him how to box, with the exception of actually doing the competition part of it. You know, 95% of what you do as a fighter to condition has nothing to do with the actual fight. It's the conditioning. It's the everything else involved. And lo and behold, Scott got so much better in a relatively quickly period. Within about 4 to 6 weeks, he was able to sign his name again. He was confident enough to go out to public to tell people that he had Parkinson's disease, because he was doing something about it. And he knew that if it was helping him, that it would help other people. So he wanted to start a nonprofit organization. And he wanted me to be a part of helping to build this organization. And I had always wanted to do something with my boxing career because of what my coach, Mark Lemrick, did for me and what it did for me emotionally. I always thought that I wanted to work with kids or do something. And I thought, this is just perfect. The way that he described to me the trauma of the diagnosis and the helplessness, and that he actually had suicidal thoughts at one point as a public figure, it made perfect sense to me, and I wanted to be involved. So we jumped in, we started this program for people with Parkinson's, and it's not just a physical program, it's very emotional, you know, pulling people out of the depths of despair when you're given this, what people perceive as a death diagnosis, which it's not, it is not, but in that moment, it's completely traumatic. The program is going very strong. 2 years into the program, I'm teaching a class on a Wednesday morning. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and my phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. And I'm like, everybody knows I'm at work. What is going on? I finally picked up my phone, and it was my fiance at the time, the father of my child. And he said, babe, I need you to step outside for a second. And I thought, oh my God, I thought my daughter was 2 years old at the time. I thought something had happened to her. And I stepped outside, and he said to me, I don't know how else to say this, but your brother shot himself this morning. And I collapsed in the yard. I didn't know what was going on. He did not have a history of depression. He was very much like my dad, just a kick-ass guy. And I thought immediately, once I got over the 30 seconds of shock, I thought immediately about my mother. Like, how in the hell is she going to deal with this again? And I knew I was going to have to be strong and put my feelings aside for my mother, who had just lost her husband years before, and now her son. In the Rock Steady Boxers, we had 30 people in that class. They saw me through the window, and two of them came running out and picked me up off the ground, and they canceled class and they drove me home. And I didn't even think I was going to be able to go back to work. Our family was so distraught from losing two of them. Mm-hmm. And my mother was just a wreck. I mean, listening to Sherri speak about losing her son, I saw that in my mother for years. We spent weeks together as a family trying to pick up the pieces, and I ended up going back to work about a month later, and my head was just not on straight. And finally, one day, about 4 months after my brother died, my mom said, Kristy, you need to fight again. Because I couldn't get my head out of my ass. and she said, you need to fight again. And I was 28 years old at the time, the 2-year-old daughter and a full-time career. And I was like, you're right. So I came out of retirement in boxing, and I ended up winning another world championship. And I got to train alongside my Rocksteady boxers with people with Parkinson's. We would train together. They took a huge busload up to Chicago for my championship fight, and I won. I ended up fighting 5 more times. I think it was only about another 2 years after Tommy had died. But that turning that adversity back into another opportunity is what got me healthy again, and showing my daughter, that you can't lay down on the canvas. You got to get up. You got to keep moving. And we continue to build Rocksteady. It's now an international organization. We've got about 900 affiliates throughout the world. And one thing that's been very consistent with this organization is the prevalence of suicide, and the prevalence of people getting that diagnosis and not having that resource in that moment of despair to reach out for help when they think they can't get up. I hope that we're providing a service for these people to say that your life is not over. You're going to get stronger. There's opportunities here all around you, and we're a resource. So it has been amazing how this has come full circle. And I guess that's my message to all of you. This is a hard time of year. We all have had losses. We all mourn people during this hard time. This holiday season is a time to reflect on our loved ones. And I just want you all to walk away knowing that when these things happen to you, you can stay in that moment as long as you need to, but you have to pick yourself up off the canvas, because it is inevitable that the same thing is going to happen to someone else someday, and they're going to be looking to you for strength because you've been through it and you were able to gain strength from it.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow. Wow, ladies, I'm speechless, but I guess I would just say thank you both very much for sharing all of it. I'm opening it up. Questions, you guys. Anybody got anything they would like to throw out at these? When Sherri had shared with me, she and I share well, my daughter who's on here, we share grandchildren, but that's how Sherri and I met originally. But Sherri, I think it was maybe a couple months ago, you were sharing about the idea that when the stigma end of it. And, as somebody who's never been touched by it in my immediate family, if I saw you in the store and I knew you and I knew that, I would try to avoid you. Not because I was trying to be rude. I was trying to treat you I would be kind of respect. I would think it was out of respect.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like.
Yeah. I get that, because at first, and Kristy probably would agree with this. You do feel like the plague, like,
Right.
But I can remember going in the grocery store soon after. I mean, it was probably a month before I walked into the store afterwards.
Yeah.
And I remember people that I knew that I thought was my friend, turn around and I'm not exaggerating. In my eyes, she was practically pushing her cart and running the other way.
Yeah.
So she would not have to probably look at me, talk to me, deal with me, and that probably, and Kristy could probably admit to that, or, agree with us, that hurt because people,
yeah.
I didn't ask for this to happen in our family. I mean, it did, we were dealing with it. But all I wanted was, I didn't want to have a whole conversation. That's not what I was, but just say, hello, treat me like I'm normal.
Right.
Because our life was not normal at that time. And
Right.
I mean, it still isn't, but a little piece of that goes a long ways when you just
Yeah.
say, and they didn't even have to ask me how I was. Just say hello and keep on going. I didn't care. But don't, but people did. People did treat us differently. And that's okay. They needed to deal with that. But
So that, when you're talking about that, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. If we, as people who maybe, I don't know, I know Dawn, I know my husband, I don't know the other, if we have any, I mean, we have anybody who's been touched by it, it's a good thing to know they don't want to be, they don't want to be ignored, or they don't want you to, but
ostracized or what? Yeah.
so
I mean,
guess, yeah, go ahead, Sherri, sorry.
No, it's just, that is something that has just stuck in my head,
Right.
because
Yeah.
of that, and I won't ever forget that,
Yeah. Kristy, did you have that too? Because people knew, right?
Well, I think my perspective is different because I was a young adult.
True.
I was an early teenager when it happened to my dad. So I had overwhelming support from friends and family, but I was the one that isolated when my brother passed away. And it was for the same stupid reasons. He had a big fight with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
That was it. It was a moment. I was 28 years old, but I resonate with what Sherri's saying because I had to carry my mother,
Right.
who went through that very same thing. Her friends and family isolated her because she was so distraught for so many years, had alcoholic tendencies to cope, and people avoided her. And that, I think, Sherri, hurt her more than anything, because it's funny, and I'm sure all of you have dealt with death in your family, whether it's an immediate family member or a very, very good friend. It's like when there's someone that close to you that passes away, there's a lot of emotion, and there's a lot of people around for like the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
There's funerals and the wakes and the cards and the flowers, and then guess what? Everybody else scatters and goes on with their lives, and then you're stuck with this trauma.
Yep.
And nobody else is around. So I completely resonate with that part of it, but also I can't imagine losing a child in this way.
Right.
And I witnessed my mother go through some severe trauma. I mean, we all did, but my mom, yeah, Sherri, I just want to reach out and give you a hug. Your blank square. But yeah, my mom is okay now. It's been 13 years since my brother died. And she's in a good place. We can joke about him now, we can make fun of him now, but it's still there. And now, and Sherri probably understands this. I think what I crave and what my mother craves the most, or grieves the most about my brother, is he was 23 years old. I grieve the potential nieces and nephews that we could have had. She grieves the grandchildren that she could have had. And
Yes.
that's a whole nother thing that never stops.
No.
Yeah.
That's when I get, I'll say, pissed off. I get angry because, he's missed out on being an uncle.
Yeah.
Being at his brother's wedding. It's all those first, and those will never stop.
Right.
There will always be another first. So it doesn't stop. If I'm sure Kristy would agree. There's just always something when you think you've conquered it all. Nope. there's something else, in the line of all of it.
Does anybody feel free to just ask questions? I think one thing I was thinking about is that we're talking about two very different scenarios in general, but we agree that suicide can be prevented. depression can be prevented. Suicide is preventable, obviously, is what we've been saying. Kind of, I don't know. You're coming at it, Kristy, from the angle of your brother and your father. They made a very bad decision very quickly. Sherri didn't know that Scott was dealing with all that he was dealing with until later, right, Sherri? Obviously.
Yeah, we found a journal where he had journaled all of this, and we had no idea that he was struggling because he was a perfectionist.
So Sherri, you are now I guess it's knowing. I'm talking about you've gone into the schools, you've got these programs started now to help with that. And what is it called?
We have started, it's called Teen Pep. It actually started in Toledo with ProMedica. They started it when I started my race. The money is the bonus. What we gain from that goes right back into the school, but it's the awareness and sharing it is what I enjoy about, or I like about it, of course, because word of mouth, it goes a long ways. But the Teen Pep program it did start in ProMedica in Toledo, so we've brought it here to Defiance at Defiance High Schools where we've started it. And it's teens with teens, and they are supervised by an adult, a guidance counselor, and then someone also from Toledo from ProMedica is their go-to person, of course. But they are trained. They have a full week of training that they go through at Toledo to be able to do this. They are handpicked. They have to interview for it. They are juniors and seniors that do this. So they're doing something with the winter break coming, Christmas break coming. Tomorrow they're offering hot chocolate with all the extras and things to the students, and they're handing out candy canes and positive notes and to each and every one. Because I think Defiance has like 400 or 500 kids in the high school, so they're hoping to reach a lot of kids, because that's a tough time for them.
Sure, that is. I cannot imagine. Good. Well, and then I was just thinking, you shared this, but Kristy, I don't know. I don't know. How do you? You're not, because you're both situations were just a very stupid decision, as you've said. I think you've said a lot of other colorful words about it, and which I said to Sherri, and I think, being angry, I cannot imagine not being angry. It makes me sad to say I would be so angry, makes me sad, but that's what I'm thinking. But so what words, you said it, you're kind of there's nothing you could have done to prevent it. Nothing Sherri could have done to prevent it. You're coming at it from different perspectives, but you're helping people who are dealing with the Parkinson's, and what a great thing to take this. And it's now, I didn't know you had 900 affiliates or whatever. That's amazing.
That's huge.
It's gigantic. That's so wonderful. I guess I don't know. I don't have any words of, I wish I had some, because neither. Yeah.
I think, what you're
trying to get at.
From a personal, are we getting some back feed?
No, it was me. I'm just talking.
From a personal perspective, when I dig in and think about it deeply, I feel like they were very selfish in their decision. And had they just reached out to somebody or waited 6 hours or waited 24 hours, I think let's all admit, we've all had fantasies of like, I just can't do this anymore. I think everybody's had a moment where they're like, wouldn't it just be easier just to be gone? And I think that they were both so overwhelmed in that moment, whatever was going on in their hearts and their head, they didn't feel like there was going to be a way out of it. But if they would have just picked up the phone and called a cousin or called a brother or called me, called your sister, that they could have been talked down from that moment. So my perspective is a little bit different, and I'm glad that Sherri and I can present these two different perspectives, because I think that there are these moments, and if people have a resource or best friend, a spouse, a brother, sister, somebody, and can make that decision to reach out, it could change the trajectory of that entire decision, because
Mhm.
ultimately that decision, that selfish decision in that moment, changed tens of thousands of lives, literally. I
It
mean,
does.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
so what we're doing
Yeah.
with people with Parkinson's, it's not set up to avoid suicide, per se, but it is call us on the day of diagnosis because we have something that will help change your life. And that is a resource that's in place for a demographic that has a high prevalence of suicide. And there's probably so many demographics that have a high prevalence of
Right.
suicide. And people just need to be aware that there's programs in place to help lift them up.
Yeah.
And then, I agree. That's why with the teen pep, that's why I think I went that way, because let's be real, kids talk to kids. Kids don't
Right.
talk to adults
Yeah.
when they've been told over and over and over again, that's just not what they do.
Yeah.
So the teen pep program has been working. I do think it's been working, or helping. I should say it's I think it is helping with the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been participating, and that's one reason I know, I mean, Sherri, we got involved and we do a few different things, but we have music, we provide sound system, but you always have people speaking at the race about the Teen Pep program. And it seems like what they've discussed, what they've shared, what they've, that it's doing its thing. I guess I would just say, we all have, I have never, I mean, this is not about me, but I just know when I was in school, I would have loved to have somebody reach out to me once in a while, make sure I was okay. Because I was not always real happy, and I guess I would say that, no, but we're probably very few of us were ever completely happy all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Amen.
Amen.
To err on the side of going overboard when you care about people, and that program, the Teen Pep, what a great thing. What a great thing to bring that to the Parkinson Foundation, the whole, I mean, just ladies, you've done so many things. One thing I will say, and I'm not going to close it, I do want you guys to, if you have questions, I know we have Katie's email and I have Hannah's, and Dawn, obviously, we've got yours, but I'm going to share or save the chat. We're going to put this out. I would encourage you, if you have questions. My vision in the big picture is that TTR Networking has a nonprofit, and we do. And our leader of that is on the call today, and it's TTR Cares. And we started it because our whole plan with TTR 11 years ago when we started was that we were going to support nonprofits because there's so many of them out there. But in our membership, we only have a handful of them. One of them is the Indiana Parkinson Foundation. Sherri didn't know anything about us, so I'm not expecting her to join us in TTR, and I don't know that it would benefit her, but Kristy is a member of our network. And I would love to think, Dawn, I'm going to give you like 2 minutes or whatever to say a couple things, but really, truly, truly, that is what TTR Cares is about. And I want to support our members and the people who've given. So part of it is we'll always support Sherri. I mean, I like Sherri because we share grandchildren and all that kind of stuff every day. And they are pretty special. They're the best, but then Kristy has been instrumental in our network, as well as the Indiana Parkinson Foundation leader, our director, is a member of our network. So for me, those are two no-brainers that next year we want to be part of this. So Dawn, tell us just in a nutshell, TTR Cares, what are we trying to do? Anything?
Okay, and I am Dawn Evans Casey, not Jennifer Johnson.
No, you're not.
In the box. I've been a member of the TTR networking group for a number of years, 6+ years. And a couple of years ago, in the midst of the pandemic, we started TTR Cares. And that was an extension of our business professional networking where, we're all people. We all have concerns and issues that go beyond our business, that touch our own personal lives. And when we're building relationships and interacting with each other, we want to make sure that, everybody's okay, that their voice is heard, that if they are in need, that they have a way to share and connect and have those needs met, and that we have a way to connect with nonprofits and community organizations that do good. And, regardless of what the area or topic is involved in. So that's what TTR Cares is all about. We started out doing monthly presentations on various topics, and we've talked about mental health and physical health and depression and elder care and poverty and all kinds of things. We really need to get kind of stir up the pot and reactivate that group. So I am very interested in connecting with nonprofits, finding out what the mission and purpose is, communicating that to other people who have an interest in that, who resonate with that mission and want to find out how they can donate their time, talents, or treasures, and lead more fulfilling lives, in that they can not only thrive themselves, but watch their community and others kind of bounce back and thrive as well. So that's what TTR Cares is all about. I did have a question for Kristy, in that I have heard that individuals who have experienced suicide in their own families have a higher likelihood or to be faced with depression and contemplate suicide themselves. So I'm asking it, are you familiar with that statistic? And then do you know of any behaviors, practices, recommendations to share to help prepare to not be, a part of those statistics?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And yeah, we experienced firsthand, and it was a no-brainer to our entire family that my brother took the exact same path, as his father showed him. I think the things that Sherri's doing with the walks and the suicide prevention programs that she's putting into place, allowing survivors of suicide to talk about the damage that it does to families, and also that there's so many resources for people to feel the way that they feel, and it's okay to feel the way you feel. I'm not specifically aware of any programs that are set up to help survivors not go down that path, but I can only assume that with the things that Sherri is doing, I mean, it's only anecdotal. How could Sherri even create a statistic on how many people that they've saved, how many teenagers have been saved through that program, just because they had someone to talk to? I mean, there's no way to even measure that. So I think the more programs that pop up like this, giving struggling teenagers, survivors of suicide, addicts, giving those types of people outlets to give them hope is the best that we can do. And we all have to strive to, those of us that are in this community need to keep striving to keep it aware, not bottle it up, talk about it, so that people don't think that they're alone.
Amen.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, ladies, everybody. Thank you very much. I do not want anybody to feel like they cannot talk or ask questions. So be sure if you have any. Does anybody have any? Anything? Hannah? Oh,
Hi, Mackenzie.
There's Mackenzie. And
Ready?
Lucas is in there somewhere. So now, Dawn, you've seen all of our grandchildren. Lucas has got his back to us right now. And Sherri, I don't know if you can see, even though you're not on the thing.
Yeah, I can see everything but myself.
Well, I think it was just a ploy so you wouldn't have to be, we wouldn't have to see it.
I even dressed up today.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I even dressed up today. Gosh,
I bet
darn
you
it.
looked awesome. That's Mackenzie Rose right there, the top of her head. I would just say Hannah, everybody, Katie, Philip, Don, Kristy, Sherri, Rachel, you guys, thank you for all being on today.
Thank you for letting me crash. Yeah.
Yes, I'm just glad.
Appreciate it.
And Hannah, thank you for putting your email. It is not meant, I've got Katie's because she signed up for a few things, so I know we'll connect at some point. But just thank you, Kristy, Sherri, you guys. I just wish more people took things and did, found it to be their mission to go out and make it better for others who have, that's what we're all here to do, people.
Thank you for thank you for letting us share our story, because the more that we can talk about it, not that it makes it any easier, but it makes it, the awareness gets out there, right, Kristy? And so if we can talk about it and spread the word about the awareness, and that's what we want, I think.
And
Sherri, I have a joke for you.
What's that? Go ahead.
Why was this? This is relevant. Why was Santa's little helper so sad?
I don't know.
He had low self-esteem.
Oh.
No,
I know that was bad. I'm not right.
If you want to visit one of our TTR groups, we have Dawn, who leads our only evening group. Then we have Kristy, who's in our North Side group, and she tells jokes every week like that. So you must come and visit us. But thank you so much, ladies. I am going to reach out to everybody, and for sure, Dawn, it is my this is one of my resolutions. I don't know if that's a good thing, but my action, we were talking about that. Don't make goals, don't set whatever. But our action is that we are going to definitely, as much as we can, as far as an organization, one step at a time, which I know we've posted a little. We haven't done as much as I would like to. And then Kristy was talking about there's a big event for Rocksteady in the fall. There's Lucas. There's Lucas. Anyway, our two little grandchildren. But anyway, we will do something with Rocksteady. There's a big convention in Indianapolis this fall in September. So you ladies, thank you to everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll leave you.
Thank you.
Can I leave you with a power joke?
Sure.
Because the last one was kind of depressing. Why is Santa so good at karate? Because he has a black belt.
Oh my gosh. That's like a duh, right?
Have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas
to everyone.
Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you
Be
again.
safe,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.